You've seen your face 1,000 times. Every morning, same mirror, same reflection. You know every angle, every feature. It feels permanent, like you were always supposed to look exactly like this. But here's a question that most people never stop to ask. If you could travel back 3 million years and actually meet your ancestor face to face, would you recognize them? Would they recognize you? The answer is one of the strangest things science has ever uncovered, and it starts with a mirror. Let's get something out of the way first. Ancient humans were not the monsters from old movies, not the hunched, knuckle-dragging, grunting creatures that cartoons sold us for decades. That image is wrong, embarrassingly wrong. If Homo sapiens from 300,000 years ago walked into the room right now, your first reaction wouldn't be fear, it would be recognition. 2 eyes, 2 arms, upright, walking the way you walk, breathing the same air. You'd know immediately this is a person. But then you'd look closer, and that's where things get interesting. The skull is where the differences live. Most ancient humans, and we're talking about species like Homo erectus, Homo naledi, dozens of branches on our family tree, had skulls shaped less like a sphere and more like an oval, longer, lower, flatter at the top, and above the eyes, a thick ridge of bone that jutted forward over the face. Scientists call it the brow ridge. You don't have one. Nobody alive today does. But for most of human history, that ridge was just normal. It was the face of the world. Then there's the jaw. Ancient human jaws were built completely differently than ours. Wider, heavier, more powerful. And the reason makes perfect sense when you think about it. In a world with no cooking pot, no knife, no fork, your teeth were your only tools. Every meal was a physical challenge, cracking open bones, tearing raw meat, grinding tough roots into something you could actually swallow. The jaw got big because the jaw had a job to do. Our jaws shrank when fire took over that job for us. Cooking pre-digests food, softens it, and slowly, over thousands of generations, the massive jaw became unnecessary. What we have now is the leftover, trimmed-down version of something that used to be a serious piece of equipment. Now, here's where the story gets genuinely wild. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, scientists found human remains that stopped everyone cold. These were adults, fully grown, fully developed adults, and they stood 3.5 feet tall. A whole species of tiny humans, Homo floresiensis, living on that island for hundreds of thousands of years, hunting pygmy elephants that had also shrunk to fit the island, avoiding giant Komodo dragons, making stone tools, surviving. Researchers nicknamed them the Hobbits, and honestly, the name fits better than anything official science came up with. They weren't primitive. They weren't failed humans. They were a working, functioning human population that had adapted perfectly to their environment. Small bodies for a small island with limited food, and they survived like that for roughly 700,000 years. For context, modern human civilization is about 10,000 years old. The Hobbits of Indonesia outlasted everything we've ever built by about 69 times over, and we didn't even know they existed until 2003. But if there's one ancient human that completely destroys every assumption you have, it's the Neanderthal. Because the Neanderthal is not what you think. Yes, they were stocky, short legs, wide torso, barrel-chested in a way that would make them look unusual on a modern street. Their bodies were shaped by the Ice Age, built to hold heat, built to endure cold that would kill most people alive today. Their noses were wide and large, specifically designed to warm and humidify freezing air before it reached their lungs. Their skulls were long and low, sloping backward at the forehead in a way that looked dramatically different from ours. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Their brains were bigger than ours. Not slightly bigger, actually larger, more volume. A Neanderthal brain was on average bigger than the brain sitting in your head right now. And they used it. They buried their dead with intention, graves with ochre, with flowers, with objects placed deliberately. They made jewelry from eagle talons and pierced shells. They mixed pigments and painted their bodies. They crafted tools with a sophistication that took us a long time to fully appreciate. They weren't brutes. They were people. Complicated, capable, creative people who happened to look different than us. And they met us. They lived alongside Homo sapiens for thousands of years in Europe, in the Middle East. They didn't just encounter modern humans, they had children with us. If your ancestry traces back to Europe or Asia, somewhere between 1% and 4% of your DNA right now is Neanderthal. Not metaphoric, literally. Their genes are in your genome, influencing your immune system, your sleep patterns, possibly even how your body responds to certain diseases. They went extinct around 40,000 years ago, but in the truest sense, they didn't disappear. They merged. Now, let me tell you about the species that haunts me the most, the Denisovans. A completely separate branch of the human family. They lived across Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. They interacted with Neanderthals. They interacted with us. They were real. They were here. And what do we have left of them? 3 teeth, a finger bone, half a jawbone. That's it. That's the entire physical record of an entire human species. We don't know what their faces looked like. We can't reconstruct them the way we can reconstruct Neanderthals. They exist for us only because scientists managed to pull ancient DNA from that tiny finger bone found in a cave in Siberia, and the DNA didn't match anything known. A ghost, a shadow species, known only by what they left inside other people. Because here's the strange part. People in Papua New Guinea carry about 5% Denisovan DNA. Aboriginal Australians, Tibetans, peoples across Southeast Asia, all carry traces of them. The Denisovans are gone from the fossil record, but woven into living human populations across an entire continent. An entire people, vanished without a face, still here in the blood of their descendants. So what does all of this actually mean? We were taught that human evolution was a straight line. Primitive ape, crouch, walk upright, become us. A clean march from the beginning to now, with us at the top. But the science says something completely different. For most of human prehistory, the Earth had multiple species of humans walking around at the same time. Different heights, different builds, different skulls, different islands, different continents, different climates, some enormous, some the size of a 4-year-old child, some whose faces we can reconstruct in perfect detail, some we know only from a few fragments of bone. They were all human. They were all here, and every single one of them is gone now, except us. We are not the crown of evolution. We're the last ones standing in a very long competition that most of our cousins lost. And here's the detail I keep coming back to, the one that makes this all feel real. Of every human species that has ever lived, every cousin, every branch, every type of person that ever walked upright on this planet, only one of them ever developed a chin. You have a chin, a real protruding chin, the lower jaw extending forward below the teeth. It sounds trivial. It isn't. Scientists still debate exactly why we have it, but no other human species ever had one. Not Homo erectus, not Neanderthals, not the Denisovans, not the Hobbits. Not a single one, across millions of years of human evolution. That specific feature, the thing that gives your face its shape when you look in the mirror, is uniquely, exclusively ours. A feature that appeared once in one species and never showed up anywhere else in the entire history of human life on Earth. You are the only kind of person who has ever had a chin.
The curiosity. Every time we find a new fossil, we find evidence of a mind that was wondering about fire, about death, about the stars, about what was on the other side of the mountain. Every species of human we've ever found left behind evidence of questions, tools built to solve problems, pigments used to make something beautiful, graves that suggest they were thinking about what happens after. That part didn't evolve. That part was already there, in a different skull, on a different continent, millions of years before you were born. Face changed, the jaw shrank, the brow ridge disappeared, the chin appeared, the brain reorganized itself into the high, rounded dome you carry today. The thing that was staring out from behind all those different eyes, the thing that made them look up and wonder and reach for something they couldn't quite name, that's the same thing looking out from yours right now. You are not the end of this story.